Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatye Namaha. Om Gum Gurubhyo Namaha. Shruti Smriti Purana Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram. We'll chant the first verse together. Rupam Drishyam Lochanam Drika Tadrishyam Draktumanasam Drishyadi Vrittaya Sakshi Drigeva Natu Drishyate. In this verse, the entire theme of Drig-Drishya Viveka is given. It is an analysis between the seer and the seen. And in the first verse itself, it establishes who the ultimate seer is. And when we say ultimate seer, then what we mean, the ultimate experiencer, which means the answer to the question, who am I? Okay. So the first verse, it says, Rupam Drishyam Lochanam Drika. Objects are seen, I becomes the seer. Then it says, I become seen, mind is the seer. Then it says, even the mind is seen. And there is a thing called Sakshi, which is the ultimate seer. And Sakshi means consciousness. About that Sakshi, it then says, there is no further witness of the Sakshi. The Sakshi is the ultimate witness. So we know ultimate witness finally is Sakshi. So who am I? I am Sakshi. Okay. Now, last week we were looking at the concept of how we are not our mind. And that's in the fourth verse where it says, Kama sankalpa sandeho shraddha shraddhe drititare hridir bhirityevamadim vasayat yekadachitihi. All the thoughts in our mind are also seen. Objects. They are objects which are seen. So many thoughts we have. We have thoughts which are rational and we have thoughts which are emotional. So whether it's a rational thought or an emotional thought, either way, any of these thoughts or feelings are not me. This is the most important thing. They are not me. And it's so interesting, obviously, at a time where we're isolated, many people are saying, oh, a lot of negative thoughts are coming to my head. Swamiji, what do I do? Negative thoughts are coming. Let them come. Don't worry. They're not you. They're just thoughts only. Thoughts come, thoughts go. Negative and positive thoughts. Happy one day, sad one day. So carefree, looking at the beautiful blue sky. And then miserable and anxious about how long is lockdown going to go for. So many different thoughts will keep coming. So we said there's two ways to manage our mind. One method of managing the mind is to master the mind. Master the mind. The second method is to transcend the mind. Okay. Now, last week, we gave a technique on how to master the mind. And we said that start watching your thoughts. And as you watch your thoughts and see where they're going, and the minute they start going into unpleasant, undesirable places, we have to exercise our choice, which means we have to exercise our will. Yeah. That my mind can go into negative spaces, but I still have the choice to pay attention to something else. So when my mind starts going into negative places, it's all about where you place your attention. If you place your attention on that thought, you give it more power. You give it more strength. But just as we have negative thoughts, we also have a lot of positive thoughts. We have a lot of productive thoughts. We have a lot of thoughts which are very noble, auspicious, pleasant, beneficial. We have both. And so what we have to do is when our mind starts going into this negative space, we have to choose to place our attention onto these positive thoughts. We have to choose to focus on our positive, ennobling thoughts rather than our negative thoughts. Sometimes you'll find that when you're experiencing a negative thought, you can't find that positive thought at that time. And that's why it's sometimes very important that you already have those thoughts written down. Because at the time when negative thoughts come, it's sometimes looking for a needle in a haystack that you can't find. I can't find words. You can't find the thought. You can't find that thought. It's very difficult at that time. Therefore, keep it ready to go. The list. Positive thoughts. I am successful. I am loved. I am competent. I am capable. Keep those thoughts available. And when these negative ones come, it's a choice. We always have a choice. It's about exercising that choice. So as we watch our thoughts, we have a choice whether or not to place our attention on negative thoughts, and we have a choice to place our attention onto positive thoughts. So as you keep on exercising your choice, you will find that the texture of thoughts that come into your mind start changing. And they start coming according to your will. And as you start bringing in thoughts according to your will, you start creating a mind that you want. And as you create a mind that you want, you create a life that you want. Because it's from our mind then stems our actions, and from our actions we then create our life. So it's all about the seed is getting down to that thought and paying attention to that thought. And when you change that thought, you will change your attitude, change your action, and change your entire experience. And that's what life is. It is just the sum total of your experiences. So this is a method of mastering your mind. Yeah. However, this text actually is talking about another technique. And this technique is even more powerful than the earlier one, mastery. This is called transcending your mind. transcending your mind. Now, how do we transcend our mind? Transcend means to do what? Go beyond. Go beyond the mind. Last week, we already saw what is the definition of mind. Vritti pravaha, a flow of thoughts or emotions. Flow of thoughts or emotions. Now, I want to transcend it, which means I want to go beyond it. I want to go beyond thought. I want to go beyond emotion. Now, one of the questions is, one is how? And the key to being able to go beyond thought and emotion is to know what is beyond thought and emotion. Because until you know what is beyond thought and emotion, it's very hard to leave it. Because it's venturing from known into unknown. And to go from known into unknown is quite challenging and can be quite scary. So the more we know about this uncharted territory, then all of a sudden, it doesn't become so frightful. It's like when you're going to travel to a foreign destination. Say work tells you there's a conference in Europe and you've never been to this country. So initially when they tell you there's a conference in some European city and you've never been there, then there might be a little bit of fear because do they speak English? What are the customs? How much will it cost? How will I get from airport to hotel? Where do I stay? So many. What will I eat? Do they have Thai sadam? Very important. I need Thai sadam to survive, and I don't know. If in the middle of Germany, you can get Thai sadam, curd rice. What will I do? Do I pack the Thai sadam? All these major anxieties will start coming. Now, what do? You then start getting onto Google. And on Google, you research, Hamburg. Maybe that is the name of the place you're going. I don't know where that place is. But we'll say Hamburg. I don't know because they serve hamburgers there, but it's called Hamburg. There is a place called Hamburg. So now you research Hamburg and you find out what is the local language. Do they know English? What is the currency? What is the conversion? What is the available restaurants? Now on Google, you can find everything. Before you land in the place, you'll know more about the city than the locals will. The locals will start using you as a tour guide because they'll be like, this guy knows more about all the South Indian restaurants that serve pure vegetarian food than we did. And so what do? You start exploring and doing a bit of research into this previously uncharted territory, previously unknown territory. And as you do more of that research, you become more comfortable. You realize, oh, they can speak English. You realize, oh, the currency is okay. All this. And then when you have this knowledge of your new destination, then what happens is it becomes easier to leave your current situation to venture into the new destination. But when I have no idea what that uncharted territory is like, many times I will resist going because of it's too scary. I don't know what it is, so we delay, we procrastinate, we avoid it. But now I've done my research and I found out, okay, I know about this city, I know a bit about this place. Good. Now when I know a little bit about it, wonderful. I am now feeling more confident to leave my current confines and move into this new destination, new place, new abode. Okay. In the same way, we now want to transcend the mind, which means go beyond, which means leave the mind. We want to leave the mind and go to another destination that is beyond the mind. Then we better find out what is the nature of this destination. Okay, and with this, we will go into verse 5. Okay, so I'll put that up on the screen and we'll chant this word. Nodeti nastametyesha Nodeti nastametyesha navriddhim yati nakshayam. Navriddhim na yati nakshayam. Swayam vibhatyatanyani. Swayam vibhatyatanyani. Bhasayet sadhanam vina. Bhasayet sadhanam vina. Esha. Esha means this witness, Sakshi, Chiti, it was called in the previous verse. This consciousness which is beyond the mind, na udeti, it does not rise. That means it has no birth. Na astam iti, it does not set. Astameti, it does not set. Navriddhim, it does not increase. Nakshayam, it does not decrease. Swayam vibhati, it shines by itself, self-luminous. And ata anyani bhasayet, it illumines others. So it shines of itself, it illumines others. Sadhanam vina, without the help of any external aid. Okay, so that's the verse, that's the basic translation. So now this now is talking about the nature of consciousness, Sakshi. Now one thing I want you to do, I don't know, you don't have a book in front of you, you have to mark this down somewhere. That verse 5 is about consciousness. Verse 5 is about me. You must write that down. This is my description. Oh, wonderful. They're giving me a description. Yes, we are now going to teach you about yourself. Oh, Swami, I already know myself. We'll give you a better self now. We're going to give you a makeover. Makeover. Just like I got a makeover today. You too are going to get a makeover with this verse. So you must understand, this discussion on consciousness is the discussion on the ultimate subject, the experiencer, which is whom? That is me. Please understand, this is all me. Okay? Don't forget that. Don't sit there and read this thing. Oh, consciousness, that was wonderful. So good for consciousness. No birth, no death. It doesn't get bigger, doesn't get... I'm putting on a lot of weight sitting in lockdown, but this consciousness, it doesn't put on any weight. Wonderful. No, you, it is talking about you. Okay. Now, what are the things given? This consciousness is what lies beyond the mind. What is the nature of it? Na udeti. Na udeti means it does not rise. Udaya. Udaya means to rise. Suryodaya. That means sunrise. Now here it means, udeti means janma. It has no birth. Consciousness has no birth. Consciousness has no origin. It has no origin. Astameti means to set. And what that means is it has no death. Consciousness has no death. Consciousness does not perish. You will find this sentiment given in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 20. Najayate mriyate va kadachit. Consciousness, no jayate, no mriyate, no birth, no death. Okay. Navriddhim. Vriddhim means to increase. Means to increase. Vriddhim also means to age. Means to age, but increase. So it does not increase. It doesn't increase. What happens to it? Does it just decay? No, not kshayam. Kshaya means to decay. It doesn't decay. Okay. Let us just look at this portion here now. Okay. Because from this portion, we are going to understand there are deep implications just to these simple words. So first we've said it has got no birth and then it has got no death. Okay. Consciousness. Oh, now, can we prove that it has no birth and no death? This next portion is a bit of logic to prove. There is no birth and no death. It's a little bit complicated, but to pay some attention. But if you don't understand it, it also doesn't matter. Yeah, but I feel I better share and establish this. Okay. Now, what is birth and what is death? When we say birth, then we talk about a thing was not existing, and then it comes into existence. It was not there, and then it comes into existence. It's called birth. And what is death? It was there, and then it goes into non-existence. It's not there anymore. So it was there and not there. It's called death. So birth, not there, and become there. Now we have to sit there and say, how can we prove consciousness has got no birth? Maybe consciousness has undergone birth. Which would mean what? That means consciousness was not there, and then consciousness became existing. It was there. So it was not there and then manifested. Is this possible? And when we look at it, if consciousness was not there, consciousness is also existing, then what was there prior to that consciousness? If it was not consciousness, which is existence itself, then what was there? If it was not consciousness existence, then the only option is non-existence. Oh, so non-existence, existence. Now we look at this and we say, yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe there was nothing there. In simple language, from nothing, something came. This is generally what we accept about the creation of the world. We say, in the beginning, there was nothing. And then Big Bang, another Big Bang, so many things came out. Yeah. We don't really do a proper investigation. We just say, oh, Big Bang, and then we say Big Bang Theory, and then we make TV shows out of it, and then we do a lot of different things we do with it, and then we keep on perpetuating this Big Bang. Yeah. Now, let's really explore the concept of there being nothing. If in the beginning there was nothing, the question is, how do you establish there was nothing? To establish anything, there should be evidence. And evidence means someone has to have seen it. That's what evidence. Someone has to have seen that thing, and then you can say there is proof. We have collected the data. Data means someone has seen it. For someone to have seen it, what is the nature of that person? That person should be conscious. So if we're saying non-existence then turned into existing consciousness, the question is, who saw this non-existence? Who was there to collect the data on this non-existence? Another chap, one scientist was sitting there. Oh, if one scientist was sitting there, then was he conscious or not conscious? Oh, he was conscious. Then if he's conscious, he is there. That means consciousness is already there. If consciousness is already there, then you can't say consciousness was born because it was already there. Yeah. So the problem we have with this concept of non-existence is there's no empirical evidence for it, and there can never be any evidence for it. Why? Because who can be there to see or witness non-existence? Because if they are there, then it's no longer non-existent. They are there. So this is a bit of a conundrum that we have. The problem. So logical fallacy, actually. Yeah, it's called logical fallacy. These are fallacies in logic. That if you keep on thinking with something which is non-existent, someone else has seen it. No, they can't see it. Then if no one has seen it, where's your proof? There is no proof. So because there is no proof of the origin of consciousness, therefore we also have to say consciousness has no origin. Consciousness has no origin. And is this supported by anything other than this logic? Yes, Shastra supports it. So Shastra also says, there is no birth, najayate mriyate vakadachi. There is no birth for this consciousness. Yeah, sadeva somya idamagra asid. In the beginning, existence was there. All the Upanishads say that. Okay. So Shastra says it. Logic also says we can't have a thing called non-existence. It doesn't make any sense. And those who have experienced this pure consciousness in the seat of their meditation, they've also confirmed it the same. So we have Shastra, we have logic, and we have the experience of enlightened masters. These three things becomes your proof. That becomes your proof of anything. There should be an authoritative scripture. There should be logic to support it. And there should be experience. Someone should have experienced it. These three things are there. So now consciousness does not have an origin. Does consciousness have an end? In the same way, if consciousness has an end, someone must see it. If someone is to see it, what is the nature of that person? They are conscious. That means consciousness is still there. So we still have a problem. So about this death also merging or just dissolving into non-existence, oh, we have a problem, because no one can be there to see that non-existence. Therefore, this non-existence is not available. The same problem that there is no non-existence prior, no non-existence posterior, then you can't have a thing called birth and you can't have a thing called death. Yeah, a little bit complicated, but don't worry about it. The bottom line is there's no birth and no death for consciousness. Okay. We'll make it simple. Let's make it a bit simple. Let's use the next aspect that said, na vriddhim yati na kshayam. Let's make it simple so we can grasp it. Vriddhi means to grow, and kshayam means to decrease. Means change. Let's just call that change. Okay. Now, it's saying here, there is no change for consciousness. Consciousness does not change. Consciousness does not change. How can we prove that? Okay. Now, in our day-to-day experience, let's just use our day-to-day experience. In our day-to-day experience, in order to see change, the one seeing it must be changeless. Okay? The one seeing change must be changeless. Yeah. Simple example is that if you're at a train station, if you're in the train, yeah, and when you're on the platform, and many times you can't tell when you see the other carriage moving, sometimes you can't tell if you are going backwards or they are going forward. There's a confusion that takes place. And the only way you can establish are you moving or the other train is moving is by looking at the platform. You have to look at the platform. Why? The platform becomes changeless reference. And from a changeless reference, then you can establish change. Only from the changeless can you understand change. Same thing in the car. When you're in the car and you're next to someone and you're on a hill. And then sometimes when you're about to go, their car goes back. And when their car goes, you don't know what's happening with your car. Hit your brakes straight away. Confusion, because both are changing. So you have to see what. The only way to establish changeless, change is by changeless. From a changeless standpoint, you can understand change. The one who's standing on the side of the road, he knows exactly which car is going forward, which one is going back. The one who's standing on the platform, he knows which train is going forward, which one is going back. So the one who is sitting on the changeless, he can easily understand change. Okay? In the same way, we know our thoughts grow and we know our thoughts subside. We know our perceptions can become intense and our perceptions can be dull. We know this entire world comes into manifestation when we wake up. And then again, the world of experiences dissolves when we go to sleep. So we know there's all these changes there. But who is seeing all the changes in my life? Who is seeing the changes in objects? Who is seeing the changes in my senses? Who is seeing the changes in my mood and my thoughts? The one who is seeing all these changes is changeless. The one who is seeing these changes is changeless. And who is seeing it? Sakshi, the witness, consciousness. Consciousness, awareness. I am aware of the changes in my thoughts. I'm aware of the change in my mood. I'm aware of the change in my perception, sharp or dull. I am aware of all these changes. That I which is aware of all the changes, that I is awareness, and that awareness is changeless. That awareness is changeless. Okay. So from my own experience now of life, let's not get into high-five thunders about non-existence and existence. From my own experience, I know that I am aware of all the changes that I experience. Therefore, I must be changeless. That I which is seeing all the changes, that has to be changeless. And who is that I? That I is consciousness. It's not your intellect. It's not your mind. It's not your body. Because all of them are seen to change. But awareness doesn't change. Consciousness doesn't change. The notion that I am, this doesn't change. It doesn't become stronger or weaker. It doesn't increase or decrease. I am is consistent. What changes is what you add to that I am. I am happy. I was really happy and now I'm really sad. I was really enjoying the class and then he started talking about non-existence and existence, and then after that I feel like I want to take a break now. I want to make this class non-existence and then go somewhere else. So now I'm thoroughly confused with the existence and non-existence of things. So that I is actual awareness. That awareness doesn't change. That awareness doesn't change. So in this way, we can establish that from my own experience, I'm experiencing a changing world. I am experiencing changing world perceptions and thoughts and emotions. Therefore, I, the experiencer, is changeless. And everything else which is an object, which we already established, mind is an object, senses are an object, and the world outside is obviously objects. All of them are changing. But I am the ultimate experiencer and I do not change. Navriddhim yati na kshayam. So in this way, now we've established, even we've shown logic, there can be no birth and there can be no death of consciousness. And now through your own common experience, you're understanding that awareness is changeless. So now when awareness is changeless, what does it mean? It means it has no beginning and it has no end. Awareness, consciousness is eternal. This is the point. Awareness or consciousness is eternal. Why? It has no birth. And then it has no death. So that which has no birth and has no death, it is nityam. It is permanent. It is permanent. In Shastric language, it's called sat. Sat, the truth. Sat. Sat is that which has no birth and which has no death. Trikaleapi tishtati iti sat. That which remains in all three periods of times, past, present, and future. It goes sat. Okay. So this consciousness, what is its nature? Sat Swarupa. As a nature of this consciousness, Sat Swarupa, pure existence, and it is eternal. So it is eternal. It is nityam. It is nityam. Okay. So that's one aspect to it. Swayam vibhati. Swayam vibhati. Swayam means oneself. Swayam means independent. Swatantra. Swatantra, independence. Yeah. Swa means oneself. Vibhati, shines. Shines, illumines, glows. This consciousness is self-shining. Self-shining. So now this is another aspect of this consciousness we're going to highlight. Consciousness is self-shining. What does that mean? It means it doesn't need some other source of light to illuminate. It illumines itself. I'll give you an example, very simple example. Sun and moon. Between sun and moon, one is self-luminous, the other one is actually borrowed luminosity. Both of them give light. Moonlight, and sunlight. But we know actually the moon is not capable of giving any light. Why? It's not Swayam Vibhati. It takes its light from somewhere else and it only reflects it. It's a reflective medium. However, sun is self-luminous. Sun, its nature is luminosity. Its nature is prakasha, shine. It shines. That's its nature. It is not borrowed. It is not extracted. It is not taken from somewhere else. That is its very nature. Consciousness, its nature is to be self-shining, which means it does not depend upon any other factor. This is true independence. True independence is there only in consciousness. Every other faculty of ours will always be interdependent. Our mind and its thoughts will get affected by the world. Our senses will be impacted by the world. That's called interdependent. Only consciousness is truly independent, that in no way is it impacted, affected by the world. So now this consciousness, which is self-luminous, that means it is generating its own light, light of awareness, not a physical light, light of awareness. What's the implication here? The implication is that its nature is just to illumine. Illumine means to provide awareness or light to anything in front of it. Whatever is placed in front of it, it just illumines. What are the things placed in front of it? Good thoughts, bad thoughts. So sometimes good thoughts, sometimes bad thoughts. And what is consciousness nature? Just to illumine those thoughts. Now the question is, when you have good thoughts and bad thoughts, do my good thoughts and bad thoughts influence my consciousness? Do they contaminate? Do they stain consciousness? When you hear different people speaking, they use the word consciousness very differently. So some people say you can direct your consciousness, you can cleanse your consciousness, purify your consciousness. They're using a different language actually. Here with the Shastra, consciousness is not something that needs to be purified. It is not something that needs to be cleansed because it is not something that can be stained. Last week I gave the example, and again, The light in your room, the light right now that is shining in your room and illuminating your face. It's illuminating all the objects around you. So whether or not you have half a plate of half-eaten dinner next to you with ants and bugs crawling along it, no, I don't think that'll be there, but in case it's there, and whether or not you have got a beautiful, clean environment because you just vacuumed the house today, whether you have a clean floor or a dirty floor, light that falls on it does not get contaminated by it. The light which falls on the floor doesn't get contaminated. So it can be a clean floor, light doesn't become cleaner. It can be a dirty floor, light doesn't become any dirtier. So it is in no way affected. So when it says Swayam Vibhati, it means this consciousness is self-luminous. It does not borrow it from anything else. The most important thing is being self-shining consciousness. It does not get stained by anything else. Okay? It doesn't get stained by anything else. Okay? And its nature is pure. It is pure. Shuddha Chaitanyam. It is pure. Okay? Now, there's a lot happening here. We need to understand what are the implications of both these things. So when we say it doesn't have birth and it doesn't have death, we established it is eternal. When something is eternal, that means it will never die or cease to exist. It will never die or cease to exist. In our life, we have our deepest and strongest fear is connected to death. Our deepest and strongest fear is connected to death. When we're young, we don't think about it. That's why it doesn't seem to preoccupy our mind. We think, I am invincible, drive my car as fast as I want. Huh? But now, just get COVID. Get COVID and see what happens. Oh, I don't know, I'm going to survive. And then we'll all start panicking only. We'll all start panicking. Yeah? That's how invincible we are. One little virus will come and cause us a whole lot of panic, isn't it? So we are not that invincible. So our anxiety is around what? It is around death. Our biggest fear is fear of death. Although I heard a joke, it was quite funny. And it said, people have got greater fear of public speaking than they do of death. Which means what? Which means at a funeral, it's better to be the person in the casket than the one who has to give the eulogy. Because the one who has to give the eulogy has more fear than the one in the casket. The fear is more. Anyway, that was a joke said by a comedian. But I don't think it's true. The reality is fear of death is a number one fear. Okay? Now, what do we establish? We establish that consciousness is free of death. Oh, consciousness is free of death. If consciousness is free of death, then it becomes free of fear. It becomes free of fear. In fact, all fear is connected to loss. It is connected to loss. That's where our fears are connected to. Yeah. You might say, no, I get very anxious when I go for job promotion, I get very anxious when I try something and it doesn't work, as a fear of failure. I never even had the job and I'm worried about losing it. You never even had it in the first place. There is a loss there. There is a loss of reputation. When you try for something and it doesn't work, there is a loss of reputation. That's why some people say, I prefer not to try. But if you ask me, did you get the job? I never applied. I never applied. I didn't even know it was there. That's why you can't sit there and say I'm a failure. But if I knew the job was there, I applied for it. And after applying for it and trying for it and sitting for it, and I didn't get it. There's, oh, this one, we don't know. Don't know if it's that smart. May not be that good. Then you feel there's a loss of reputation because I tried and I failed. So if you look at it, behind even our enormous fear of failure is actually just a fear of loss. The fear of loss of standing, the fear of loss of my reputation, it all comes down to loss. What is the nature of consciousness? That which suffers no loss. Consciousness suffers no loss. Nakshayam, it doesn't decay. Our reputation can decay. Our reputation can be besmirched, sullied, contaminated, dirty. We can lose it. A person can live 40 years of extreme nobility and sacrifice, but one act of deception and their whole reputation has gone down the toilet. That's all it takes. One act of deception and people remember you always for that one act of villainy than all your acts of heroism. We only need to say people like Richard Nixon, and no one knows what good he did. We only know Watergate scandal. This is called loss of reputation. This loss of reputation causes tremendous fear, even when we're young. That's why young people, the biggest fear is fear of failure. Because they're worried about losing reputation. They're successful. They're trying to build this reputation. I'm intelligent, I'm competent, I'm successful. And because they're trying to build that, they're very nervous about anything which sets it back. When we become middle-aged, then we have amassed and built our little empire. We also have a standing in society. And now we're worried about losing our standing in society. We're worried about losing what I already have gained, acquired. And then as we age, then we have, obviously, the anxiety is towards my mortality. Yeah, loss of health, loss of functionality, loss of independence, isn't it? So all our fears are connected to loss. What is the nature of consciousness? It suffers no loss. It suffers no death. It suffers no decay. So what does this mean? It means I suffer no loss. I suffer no death. I suffer no decay. I, as consciousness, suffer no loss, death, or decay. Therefore, I have no fear. This is the implication. When I transcend the mind and live as consciousness, you will live free of fear. That is the nature of that consciousness. Abhayam vindate patishtam vindate. You become free of all fear. Abhayam. It is abhayam. So by saying that it has no birth, and by saying it has no death, it has no growth, and it has no diminishing decay, please understand what it is saying. There is no form of loss whatsoever for consciousness. Not from death, not from decay, and not from loss of reputation. Other factors. It is above and beyond all forms of loss, therefore above and beyond all forms of fear. So when I now claim myself, not as the mind, but I define myself as this consciousness. When I define myself as this consciousness, please understand, you will start experiencing the state of fearlessness. You will experience a state free of all fears and all anxieties, because they are connected to loss. That loss is happening for body, mind, intellect. It is not happening for consciousness. So it means what? It means I am free. I am free of all fear. This is the greatest thing to experience. I am free of all fear. Otherwise, every moment there is something to worry about. Even when we're having a good time, some people are very skilled at worrying about things. They're called warriors. They're highly trained warriors. But they're not warriors of combat. They're highly trained in worrying. That even when times are good, they have decided to imagine what will happen if times change. You have such a beautiful child who's so obedient and intelligent. But what if they become a teenager and then get into bad habits? Deal with it when it comes. Some people are very good at worrying about a lot of things. This anxiety and fear is constantly with us. It says that. It says as long as we consider ourselves to be a jiva, jiva means body, mind, intellect, you have to live with fear. It is part and parcel. When you define yourself as body, mind, intellect, you have to live with fear. There's no option. Actually, there's no option. Why? Because the nature of BMI is to decay and perish and die. Therefore, with that decay and perishing, fear comes. Now I define myself as consciousness, which has no decay and does not perish. Therefore, I become fearless. So just from the fact that there's no janma and there's no death, please understand it means you are completely fearless. You can live and exist completely fearlessly when you define yourself as consciousness. Okay. Now the second said, Swayam Vibhati. We said, I am pure self-shining consciousness. Now what does this mean? Being self-shining consciousness, we said what? That which is illuminating other things is not contaminated by those things. Light in the room is not contaminated by any object in the room. So what does this mean? It means I am free of all contamination. When I am free of all contamination, I am free of all dirt. I am free of all negativities. I am free of all insecurities. I am free of all shame. I am free of all guilt. Our guilt and our shame is connected to the notion that I am a bad person. I have done bad things. I have got bad thoughts. Because I have bad thoughts and do bad things, I'm a bad person. Therefore, shame and guilt is there. Now, what is the nature of this consciousness? Pure. It is pure. There is dirt. That dirt's in the mind, but you are not the mind. So when I am not that mind and I am pure consciousness, then I am pure. I live free of all shame and guilt. I live free of all feelings of inadequacy. I become free of all my regrets and mistakes of the past. Why did I do this? I should not have done this. I'm a terrible person because I did this. No. You are free of all of that. You can wipe your entire slate clean in a moment. Define yourself as consciousness, live as consciousness, and that moment you are pure. That moment you are pure. You are purity itself. Even in the Bhagavad Gita, Shri Krishna says, Api chet suduracharo bhajate mamananya bhag sadureva samantavyo samyak vyavasito hisaha. Even the greatest sinner, I mean, actually not even sinner, the word is a person who has done horrendous, terrible actions in the past. Even for a person who has done horrendous, terrible actions in the past, api chet sudurachara, but bhajate mamananya bhak, but worships, focuses, and becomes one with me. Me, consciousness, this pure consciousness. Sadhureva samantavyaha, that moment itself, he should be considered sadhu. Sadhu means good, sadhu means pure, sadhu means saint. That moment itself, he is sadhu. Samyak vyavasito hisaha. So in the same way, how can we overcome many of our regrets and guilts of the past? We can do this by actually defining ourselves as consciousness. When we define ourselves as this pure consciousness, then all of a sudden, those guilts and regrets are gone. Who do they belong to? BMI. Guilt and regret belongs to body, mind, intellect, not to consciousness. Consciousness said, I am just the light which is illuminating this space. In this space, somebody got vilified. In this space, somebody got criticized. In this space, somebody got abused, tormented, harassed. Doesn't matter. As the light, I remain pure, free of all of that. In the space of my life, I have vilified people. I have tormented people. I have harassed people. But the consciousness behind these terrible actions of body, mind, and intellect, that consciousness remains free of any sin, free of any mistake, free of any transgression. Eternally free is the nature of this consciousness. Eternally free. So now just look at it. No birth, no death means I am eternal. Eternal means what? Free of fear. I am fearless. Swayam vibhati, self-shining and luminous, means what? Means I'm independent and I am pure, not contaminated by other objects that I illumine, not contaminated or defined by my mind and the thoughts that I illumine, thoughts of inadequacy, thoughts of insufficiency, thoughts that I'm a terrible person. They don't define me. So Sat, pure existence. Chit, pure consciousness established. One more factor is important. Ananda, what is the nature of this consciousness? Okay, you're pure, free. Is it blissful or is it boring? Because if being consciousness is boring, I think I would rather be the wonderful sinner. Life is a bit more interesting because I can commit sin, atone for sin, commit some more sins, do some good, do some charity. Life's got a bit more spice, you know. We keep on saying variety is the spice of life. We should have some variety. Do some good someday, do some terrible things the next day. It's interesting life. Now, if you say, I'm this boring consciousness that is of the nature of existence, I want to be interesting. When I meet my friends, I might say, who are you? I'm boring consciousness. Ayyo, boring consciousness. Please, don't come to our parties anymore. We want someone who's interesting. Oh, so what is life like as this consciousness? Now you must understand, because now it said, Navriddhim yati na kshayam. That means, actually, you can establish from the fact it has no birth and it has no death. That which has no birth and no death, changeless. That which is changeless, we said, is eternal. We already established that. No birth, no death means it's eternal. Now, that which is eternal beyond time is also beyond space. Anything beyond time is also beyond space, because those two coordinates go together. So now when I'm beyond time, I am also beyond space. When I'm beyond space, that means I am not confined and restricted. It means I am infinite. This consciousness is infinite, all pervasive. That which is infinite and all pervasive is complete, whole, perfect. It is called Purnam. It's called Purnam. That which is eternal, that which is timeless, is beyond time, beyond space. If it's beyond space, no restrictions, no confinement. Where I'm not confined, all pervasive. All pervasive means Purnam. I am complete. I am whole. I am not inadequate, insufficient. I am whole. And the nature of that which is Purnam, that which is whole and complete, its nature is Ananda, satisfied, reveling in its own fullness, reveling in its own completeness. Like what? Just like if you had a nice meal right now, finish your dinner, nice meal. Stomach is what? Purnam. When stomach is Purnam, oh, tushti, tushti, santosham. Huh? There is a lot of reveling going on. Reveling in this fullness in the same way. I am full, huh? I am complete. Consciousness is full, consciousness complete. Therefore, consciousness is of the nature of Ananda. Ananda, bliss. It is bliss. So in this way, if you look at this verse, no birth, no death means eternal and free of fear. Self-shining, self-luminous means pure and unstained. And no growth, no decay means it is complete. Purnam, which means of the nature of bliss. And in the Taitra Upanishad, Raso Vaisaha Rasaggahye Labdva Anandhi Bhavati. The nature of the Atma is rasa. Rasa, nectar. Rasa is tasty, delicious. It is ras. And one who realizes that Anandhi Bhavati, he becomes bliss himself. becomes that bliss. So now when I define myself as consciousness and not the body, mind, intellect, what is the outcome? What type of life do I live? I live one, free of fear. I live two, free of shame, guilt, and regret, eternally pure. And three, ever blissful, ever blissful. Nandati, nandati, nandatyeva, ever reveling, reveling in all situations. So it is not a dull state of existence. It is not that the person of realization is like a rock where they're so dull and boring in life. No, life is extremely vivid when you become the very embodiment of bliss itself. When you realize that everywhere you go, you are able to bring and give that bliss to others. Otherwise, now we go, and wherever we go, we are looking to get happiness from others. We are looking to take happiness from others. And we find it so draining and so difficult to make others happy. That's because we consider ourselves as empty. Because we consider ourselves as empty vessels, we're always looking for others to fill us up. Give me a hug, say nice things to me, tell me I'm a wonderful son, I'm a great daughter, I'm a great mother, I'm a great spouse. I say it's wonderful, say I'm the greatest cook in this. It's only when I need to take something at the end, then while I'm talking to you the whole time, I still have to remember, hey, I'm supposed to get that $5 from this person. You know, they owe me $5. They forgot to give it to me. But while I'm talking, how are your children? How is the week? How is everything? While you're having that conversation, the back of your mind is $5. I have to get that $5. Must take. Therefore, that whole conversation becomes so tense. You can't enjoy it. Why? $5. Lost your peace of mind for $5. This way, I don't need to take any love from you. I don't need to take any affection from you. I'm not waiting for praise. So I am free to give. Therefore, I am free to enjoy. I can enjoy this moment. I can enjoy this interaction. I can enjoy every person's company. I can enjoy everyone. Why? Because I am the very center and source of joy. I don't need to extract it from you. So in this way, each and every moment becomes one of rapturous joy. That person lives reveling in the simplest of things, whether they're just looking outside the window at the garden, at nature, at rain, at sun, and they're enjoying. Or whether they're with people, they're enjoying. Whether they're in the midst of intense work, they're enjoying. Or whether they're in the midst of enjoyment, they're enjoying. All situations become enjoyable. Why? Because I am joy itself. I am joy itself. So in this way, knowing the nature of consciousness will make us feel free, fearless, pure, uncontaminated, and blissful. That's why this verse is describing consciousness, but please understand that consciousness is me. Don't forget that. This consciousness is me, not this body, mind, intellect. I am this pure consciousness. Okay. This consciousness is the ultimate witness. It is the witness of everything else. Everything else is an object. Everything else is something other. But this is me. This is me. Okay. From a practical point of view, how can you bring this into your meditation or even day-to-day contemplation. As our mind goes on, our mind is just full of thoughts, and our thoughts are just sounds. They're just sounds that keep on going, sentences that are made. What to do? Why did this person do that? Why did that person do this? What do I need to do now? What's the next thing on the list? It's always a thought that's going on. Yeah. So our thoughts are just a form of sentences. They're just that inner voice that's going on. What we need to do, what you can do, is start training yourself to pay attention not to the thought, not to the voice, but to the silence in between. In between thoughts, there is a gap. That gap, there is silence. And in between words, there is a gap. There is a gap of silence. When you start placing your attention on this silence and not the noise, not the clamor, not the thoughts, but on the silence in between, that silence is Shivam, Shantam, Sundaram. Pure auspicious, pure peace and bliss. Sundaram, pure beauty. There is beauty in that. Place your attention on that silence and say, I am that silence. You have to identify with that. This is the difference between Vedanta and a lot of mindfulness that goes on. In mindfulness, you are still the mind. You are just paying attention to your mind. Here, no, you are not the mind. You are awareness that illumines the mind. So when you find those gaps of silence, when you find that peace, you have to say, I am that. This changes your definition of yourself. I am not a person seeking a peaceful mind, but I am peace itself. I am peace itself, which operates with a mind. And so it's an interesting practice, an interesting sadhana. You can do it in the seat of meditation, that you try to find and place your attention. It's actually there. It's always there. You don't need to find it. So placing your attention on the silence. And then as you practice that in a quiet seat of meditation, you can actually start practicing that throughout your day. But even throughout your day, you will be able to find these gaps of silence and identify with them. In that way, you can keep this thought that I am this ever eternal, free, fearless, pure, blissful consciousness. You can keep that contemplation continually going throughout the day. And the more continuous that is, the more you get rooted in that thought. And as you get more rooted, it's like migration is taking place. You are now migrating from your previous location to your new location. That's what we said. We're going from the known to the unknown. The known is the mind, body, mind, intellect. Now we're going into that uncharted territory. And that's what we do when we move. Whenever we move house, we go there and we slowly drop little bits and pieces over there. And as we drop bits and pieces over there, then after some time, everything goes across. And when everything goes across, the bed, the fridge, then we say, now I'm living here. I'm not staying in the old residence anymore. I'm going to stay there. Yeah. Same way as we continually practice this contemplation, there's a point in time where our identity just shifts. And it goes from I am the body, mind, intellect to I am pure consciousness. So it's just a matter of practice. And that's it. Okay. So that's it for this week. You have a sadhana. You can try this out. And yes, of course, many times we will fail. Don't be discouraged. If one time this week you manage to experience that thought, it's better than last week. Okay? I don't anticipate and expect everyone to come back as pure consciousness next week. It would be nice, but I don't have such expectations. So it's okay if you come back with your body, mind, intellect and log into the Zoom class. But even if you get pure consciousness, wonderful. That's wonderful. But if once you get that thought, please understand it's a good week. You have spiritually progressed, if even once it comes. Practice as many times. Okay, that's it for today. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om